You are having a coach and a quarterback in a huge pivotal year that will define their careers. Not so much for DJ Lagway, because if this crashes and burns, he can easily hop in the portal and find success elsewhere because he's that good of a talent. We're going to start it out talking about Florida. Florida is going to be a very fun thing to talk about because I talked about Billy Napier and the pressure that he's under, but I want to talk about the team a little bit more, as they are the top team, I would say, probably during this offseason in terms of hype and the narratives around them. It's just, they're one of the biggest teams to talk about this summer. I would also say that we're going to be talking about hot takes. Everyone loves hot takes. It's hard not to like a hot take. It's supposed to be hot, fresh out of the oven, 150 degrees to the touch. We have plenty of hot takes to talk about, and these are going to be steaming. Then we are going to talk about who is the team to beat in college football, or is there even a team to beat? Let's talk about Florida. What defines success for Florida in 2025? A simple question that does not have a simple answer, because success is not one that you can immediately apply a win total to off the top of your head without using any context. And the context that I'm talking about is we are looking at the number one team in terms of strength of schedule. It's a gauntlet. You are trying to find wins to get even to 8, and that's difficult and not even guaranteed. You are having a coach and a quarterback in a huge pivotal year that will define their careers. Not so much for DJ Lagway, because if this crashes and burns, he can easily hop in the portal and find success elsewhere because he's that good of a talent. But Billy Napier, Sunbelt Billy, this is it for him. So what would be successful? Because I think that's all they need is a successful season. Is that a college football playoff spot? Is that just getting to 8 wins? Is it winning 7 games, but the wins that they did get were against major contenders in the big old college football world? These are the things I want to talk about. Because we talked about Billy Napier and last season and how they went on a run to finish the year. They beat Ole Miss. They beat LSU. Though these weren't heavy hitters, although I think Ole Miss was a major win for them, though they didn't make the college football playoff, it's what held them out. In Florida, after how bad their season was, getting, B2A, I'm not going to say it, but B2A with Miami and Texas A&M, Graham Mertz goes out, you're putting in a true freshman quarterback against one of the most difficult schedules in the country, and you're able to string along some wins to give you hope going into next season, because Billy Napier was on the chopping block. There was already edits being put out about Lane Kiffin being the next Florida head coach. So what can we look at for 2025? Well, we have a fantastic offensive line. We have a fantastic defensive line. We have a defense overall that is littered, and I mean littered with senior talent, veteran talent that have seen the ugly side of Florida football and want to make it better. That is a type of hunger that you are not able to teach. It's something that Kirby Smart himself has said that has been a challenge for him, is finding those players that have another gear of hunger, of wanting to see winning football. It's something that when you do win football games, it's hard to recreate that same level of intensity. And it sounds like Florida has that. Florida also has a talented running back who I have as the breakout player in the entire SEC. I wouldn't say SEC. Let me backtrack. I would say the breakout player for Florida this season isn't going to be DJ Lagway. It's not going to be Eugene Wilson. I think it's going to be Jaden Baugh. Their true freshman, now true sophomore running back who led the team in rushing last season is a baller. We're talking about a powerful running back. And when you think of power, you think of these guys that aren't able to move that well. They can get those extra yards through contact, but they're not going to be able to evade, some of the faster players on the defensive side of the ball. Jaden Baugh is not that. He is a guy that was able to return kicks. He is a dynamic player with the ball in his hands. And with some of the problems that Florida has had in fall camp with those injuries, I'm starting to believe a little bit more that Jaden Ball is going to be the guy that can win them their early games. Josh Pate said it, where he was saying, what is Florida going to be able to do in these early games with these injuries, where they are dealing with some challenges in the wide receiver room? DJ Lagway is going to need some time to ramp up. They have to win ugly, and they have the tools and capabilities to win a 17-10 game, a first to 20 type of game, because they have a veteran defense that I mentioned is very dynamic and full of talent from young to veterans. There's so much good to like about their defense, and their offensive line is, I would argue, the biggest strength, the biggest known commodity on this offense overall. And as long as Billy, as a coach, which that has been my biggest question outside of the health of a lot of their star players, what does this coaching staff look like on Saturdays? I think that's a fair question to ask, because we've seen the good, we've seen the bad. We've seen a lot more bad than good. The good was last year. You outdueled Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. You outdueled Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers. But you also have some real bad marks where you got outdueled by Mario Cristobal, a coach that I think is very good at talent acquisition, but head-to-head on the battle of Saturday, I have questions. I'll keep it as light as possible. I have questions about that. And I think Billy Napier himself, I have questions about the staff and what is going to happen when we actually get into the line of fire of a Saturday game. So what are the guarantees that Florida needs and what would be successful? What would success look like for Florida this season? I think they have a 4-win buffer. Mississippi State, Kentucky, and 2 out-of-conference games that will not matter. South Florida is one that I'm not just going to completely disregard. I'm mentioning them now. They're a well-coached team, but at the end of the day, it's still South Florida. I think these are must-win games. You got the 4 wins. I found them in the schedule. Unless you're losing to Mississippi State and Kentucky, these are the next 4 that I think you have to win. You have to beat Miami, which I understand is a tall task for one of the more talented teams in the country. A lot of unproven talent, a lot of room to grow for their side on the defensive side of the ball. But they do have Carson Beck, a veteran quarterback, and they still just overall have a lot of talent. I think the same could be said for Tennessee, who walks into the swamp. You've been able to beat Tennessee consistently in the swamp. And then Florida State. Those are your must-wins. And we're now at 7. Leaving, this is where your ceiling is defined by, are these games right here. Texas walks into the swamp. That's the easy first one that comes to mind that you potentially could win. I think this is going to be a challenging game for Texas. These are all coulds. I think they could potentially win 2 or 3 of these games, maybe even 4. I do not see a sweep in any kind of capacity because these games are really tough. Speaking of which, at LSU, to kick off your conference play at Death Valley before you play anybody else is brutal. You have Georgia, obviously, in Jacksonville, and then at Ole Miss and at Texas A&M. Now, you could argue there might be a gap between the first 3 that I just talked about with UGA, Texas, and LSU. But at Ole Miss, with that offense, I do have questions about their defense. That could be a high-scoring game. But in a shootout, you don't want to go head-to-head with a guy like Lane Kiffin, especially with what you did to them last year. And then for Texas A&M, Kyle Field, you have DJ Lagway virtually coming home because Texas A&M was the second team that he was potentially going to pick in this recruiting process, paired with the fact that they embarrassed him with Marcel Reed. Now, DJ Lagway didn't play until like the last couple of minutes, but there's some motivation for Florida to now walk into their stadium and get their lick back, but it's still a very difficult game. That's 5 games. 5, am I counting that right? Yeah, that's about 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Apologies. I can count. I promise. I'm not that dumb. Close to it, though. I will say, if your floor is about 7, it needs to be 7. Let me say that. The floor could be 5 and 7. The floor could be worse. I will say, for what defines success, the floor is 7. and we'll add one more. So you need to get to 8. Anything past 8, I think, is a successful year. If you get to 9 wins with this schedule, I think you make the college football playoff. Point blank, period. I think Florida, it's so tough because you're banking on so many injuries to go your way, and they've already not gone your way. If I said I wasn't concerned, I'd be lying. But we could talk about Florida for an entire 30 minutes.